Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk about Shigeru Miyamoto being an inverted version of Gary Gygax. And we're going to talk about this in context of the Super Mario Brothers movie absolutely smashing through and utterly destroying the box office of the Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves film. And what the ramifications of this means for America and for narrative, right? All right, so let's get into this. So, we are at a very tenuous, interesting, kind of shocking time in Dungeons and Dragons history, and I want to explore this together. Okay, so this is deeply sad. But we don't learn and grow by not talking about, by not having the hard conversations. So let's have the hard conversation, right? So the Dungeons and Dragons movie is a commercial failure, right? And it had a 38.5 domestic opening on week one. That should have been $100 to $150 million, right? And everybody keeps saying, "Oh no, don't worry, Scott. There's time for it to catch up, and all it's got all this word of mouth and all this goodwill from all the amazing reviews, and the fact that every single person who goes to see it, except for a few haters, absolutely praise the film at every single level. It's gonna catch up. Things are gonna be okay." No, right? Like, you do not understand, right? Super Mario Brothers is an intellectual property enemy to Dungeons and Dragons now. It cut us out, right? Like, you have to understand this, right? And this is my point, right? This Kumbaya Garden stuff is finished. We are in the contested ground. And the reason why is timing and sequencing, right? In order for the Dungeons and Dragons movie to grow, it needs premium theaters. It needs raw numbers of theaters, and they are gone because Super Mario Brothers movie just blew the roof off of American cinema, right? Grace Randolph, the best movie reviewer in the world, she explained this. She said, "You have no idea what this meant." She said, "It used to be that the video game industry would go and grovel to Hollywood saying, 'Oh, give us a little, help us grow our audience,' right? This Super Mario Brothers movie did so well, right, that it flipped, right? And what's going to start to happen is the video game industry is doing so well, and the movie industry is in so much trouble, right, that it's now flipped. And the Hollywood is going to video games and saying, "Can you please break off some of your largesse for us?" Right? And it's completely changed the game, right? So I discussed this with a Mario SME, a Mario subject matter expert, okay? And he explained something to me, right? And he's played, he has not, I don't know if there's anybody alive who's played every Mario game, right? There's over 100 Mario games, right? And it is a massive franchise. It's not a franchise, it's an intellectual property. It's a massive intellectual property. It's a platform for series, right? It's hard to even list all the series of Mario games there are. And all of this is because of one man, Shigeru Miyamoto, okay? He is the creator of Mario, and he is a major executive. I think he might even be the top executive at Nintendo, and he's massively in control and in charge of Nintendo's success, okay? And truly, they have massive success. And honestly, I want to be very clear here. One of the reasons why they have this massive success is they are incredibly innovative, right? Like, I'm a little upset. I'm upset with the Mario franchise, with the Mario intellectual property, and I'm upset with Shigeru Miyamoto. He is cutting us off from resources we need for Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves to succeed. And I truly believe, because of Super Mario Brothers movie, and first and foremost, of course, OSR allies and their D&D Be Gone, D&D Honor Among Thieves boycott, we're cut out, right? Like, there was this point in time where we had this opportunity to have a commercial success and prove to the world that Dungeons & Dragons was a viable cinematic universe, and that window is gone. It is fully gone. I know there's some people squawking in the comments saying it's not. It is. It is. Okay? All right. I want to talk about Shigeru Miyamoto. So, I went to see the film, and then afterwards I had so many questions, right? I watched the film and I was like, this world is not compelling. In fact, it doesn't even make any sense. There's major gaps in this lore, right? Like, this world does not make logical sense. So I connected with this Mario SME, and I asked him some direct questions. I had an in-person, physical meet conversation, right? Like, face-to-face, right? And I was like, tell me, I saw the movie. I watched, I paid attention, right? Like, what did I miss? This world doesn't make any sense. Why is this compelling to people, right? And what he said is, well, you're used to intellectual properties that tell stories and actually actively build lore, right? And pay attention to lore, the way Game of Thrones does, the way Dungeons and Dragons does, the way Harry Potter does, right? It's a protected lore, it's a maintained lore, it's a grown lore, right? Those are grown lore settings. Mario is not like that. It is completely different, right? And I was like, what are you talking about? Talk to me about this. And he goes, Shigeru Miyamoto literally discouraged the game designers on many, many Mario games. He said, we don't need lore, we don't need story, we specifically need compelling gameplay, right? If the character can do something fun and cool on the screen, I don't care what the story reason is, right? And so Shigeru Miyamoto purposely squeezed out, purpose meaning, and any discussion of science, theology, politics, and philosophy to get in compelling, fun gameplay, right? This is literally the opposite. This is an inversion of what Gary Gygax did, in my humble opinion. So Gary Gygax built Dungeons & Dragons as a platform which does very, very powerfully IRL abstract modeling, right? You can use Dungeons & Dragons to run a social experiment, right? Let's say you're not comfortable with public speaking, right? You as a player can say, I'm going to give a speech to the village, right? And, to rouse them, to help me to invade the Neverwinter Forest, to defeat a young green dragon who's there, right? And now your player character has to make the speech, right? And the Dungeon Master says, what do you say, right? And then he stops and he doesn't ask for roll, right? She doesn't ask for a roll. She says, give the speech, right? And the player of the player character now needs to give the speech, right? And in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, she, the Dungeon Master, can then say, great job with the speech. I'm going to give you advantage on this roll, right? Or you did a terrible job on the speech. I'm going to give you disadvantage on this roll, right? And then you will make the roll, right? And if you get a natural 20, really doesn't matter. Like in a good Dungeon Master, if you get a natural 20, you got it. You succeeded. No matter how bad no matter how bad your actual speech was, but you go through the actions, right? Like and so and this is designed, and I'm convinced from day one, Gary Gygax carefully constructed Dungeons & Dragons as an IRL abstraction model, right? So that we could model all kinds of social experiments, exploration experiments, combat experiments, right? And I think if you were like, if you were in the military, right? Like, you literally, if you were in the U.S. military and you were being deployed, to Ukraine next week, you could run, platoon deployments using Dungeons and Dragons, right? And for your little platoon, right? Or your unit, your combat unit, right? So it is structured, and it is structured like alignment is in Dungeons and Dragons, put there purposely by Gary Gygax to say, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. You cannot skip the theology questions, the philosophy questions. All of it remains. No purpose, no meaning, no deeper discussions are going to be skipped. I will take you to the raw of your humanity, right? Gary built this from the ground up, in my humble opinion, to create this secular, incredibly powerful, incredibly valuable bridge to identity, to narrative, and to language. And frankly, on that fateful day in 1974, humanity's relationship to identity, narrative, and language changed forever, right? And Shigeru Miyamoto comes in and says, scratch all that noise. Everyone who engages with Mario, right? Everyone who engages with these plumber brothers, right? You will learn nothing. You will never grow. I will never challenge you, right? Just push the button, flip, and have fun. Only frivolization here. No dramatization, right? No optimization, right? No innovation for the player. I will innovate the industry, right? And I will innovate game design, but I will not innovate you. I will not innovate your socialization. I will not innovate your own personal exploration, and I will not help you combat any of your deficiencies. Shigeru Miyamoto is the inversion of Gary Gygax, right? But here's the painful truth, right? If you're out there using Dungeons and Dragons to cut goblins in half, and you refuse to use Dungeons and Dragons to cut your own deficiencies in half, you are in the majority. And billions can be made on your sad sack, horrible resistance to growing, being challenged, or changing at any level, right? We, people who are using Dungeons and Dragons to do exactly what Joe Manganiello said, to transform their own lives, and by extension change the civilization they live in, right? The cultures they live in. We are the cutting edge. We are humanity's greatest hope, right? Because I can tell you right now, nobody playing Mario is ever going to change this world, right? They're never going to question their own alignment. They're never going to question their own morality. They're never going to question the need to grow or change or do or be anything more. It's left up to us, right? And Shigeru Miyamoto is almost certainly has tens, if not hundreds of millions, if not over $1 billion in his bank account. And all he had to do was sacrifice generation after generation after generation of people, right, to deaden their brains and deaden their hearts and deaden their souls. Shigeru Miyamoto is the inversion of the great human hero, Gary Gygax. Every single word of that is my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.